all you viewers out there, you have a stock, bond, mutual fund, and ETF, remember, you're an outsider.
Yep.
The deal was done before it went public, and the insiders are.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for the StockPulse Network, and we've had a lot of great guests, although someone I'm really excited to sit down with, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki of richdad.com. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. I've been hearing about you for years. Finally got my copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So it's great. I know you're speaking here, and welcome to the conference. How is everything going so far, my friend?
Well, I love the New Orleans Investment Conference because it's the oldest investment conference in the world.
Right.
And as a Wall Street guy, you know, this is not where Wall Street hangs out.
No, it's a bit different.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always found fascinating after I left Wall Street, learned more about just interacting with people and energy. So it was fascinating, all of the things that you write about, but also having a background of sound money and understanding these. And I'm curious, how did that all come about?
Well, the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad's a real story. My poor dad was the head of education for the state of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
PhD from Stanford, Northwestern, University of Chicago, you know, classically trained. But as you know, school teachers know nothing about money.
Right.
And my rich dad didn't go to school because his father died, and he had to become an entrepreneur at 13.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he became one of the richest men in Hawaii. So if you look at Waikiki Beach today, when you look at the Hyatt Regency right on Waikiki Beach, all that land Rich Dad's family owns.
Right.
So, but you know, like I come to these conferences here because, like I said, Wall Street's not here. This is where I cut my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken 3 companies public through IPOs. And I took an oil company, a silver company out of Argentina, and a gold company out of China public on the Toronto Stock Exchange. So that's why I say Wall Street's not here yet, because most of these people here are real entrepreneurs doing real deals. They're all pre-IPO.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people say, well, where do you learn about money? Well, the New Orleans Investment Conference, if you have the stomach, and if you have the guts, and if you have the education, you come here and learn. So every year I'm here to talk to all the new entrepreneurs and new projects and all this before Wall Street finds out about them.
Right.
And as you know from Wall Street, the money is made before the company goes public.
Right.
You know, after that, it's a waste of time as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I come to New Orleans and I speak here. I'm speaking on infinite returns, you know, how you don't have to take money to make money, and how to pay no taxes, especially in your Trump tax laws.
Right.
So as I say again, this is where I come to speak, but more importantly, I come to learn because I have great speakers here.
Yeah, and it's interesting, as you mentioned, Robert, how it's not a lot of the topics and speakers here you don't find on Wall Street. And in my experience, it was really matter of requires some questioning of the status quo to really find this.
Well, this is the oldest conference in the world.
Yeah.
Old guys like me hang out here, you know.
Yeah, and again, like you pointed out in the book, really the difference in skill sets of what you mentioned about Poor Dad going to school, the typical academic
PhD.
versus really the entrepreneurial skills. And perhaps you could talk a bit about how that's played out in your life, as is described in the book as well.
Well, you haven't lived until you've taken a gold mining company public out of China. You haven't lived. I mean, it kind of cured me of stocks. You know what I mean? Because by the time the company's public, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And then dealing with China, as you know, Mr. Trump is pounding on China right now.
Right.
I mean, people are people, you know, but they're crooks. You know, I mean, we're crooks. America's crooks too. But after working 6 years, we took the biggest gold mining company public. Like I was standing as one of the little guys here, a little entrepreneur, pitching my deal, my oil deals, my silver deals, and my gold deals. And we go public, right? We find the biggest gold find in Chinese history.
Yeah.
Now, what is Mr. Trump upset about? Well, they steal.
Yep.
Well, we took our company public. It was worth they said at least several hundred million to $1 billion in gold.
Mm-hmm.
And what did the Chinese do? They said, thank you very much.
Right, right.
You know, and you go, well, that was an expensive education, you know what I mean? And I'm really glad I went through it. But like I said, you know, this is where I come to learn. I talk to all the young guys, all the new guys, and the old guys, and they're pitching their little resource deals or their gold deals, real estate deals, food deals. And the average person does not have the education to ask the questions here.
Right.
That's the problem. Because as you know, most of these deals don't meet the test of an IPO.
Right. Which again, you cover in the book, and I
Yeah.
couldn't recommend more highly. And especially with one of the things we've talked with a lot of the miners and companies here, which I'd love to get your take on. If you could describe just the emotion of when, you know, you have the stage where you're going out looking for the gold and maybe you find it and maybe you don't, and then fortunately it seems like it worked out really well. What's that emotionally like, that process of going through that and then having the big success?
Well, you know, most people, like my poor dad, PhD, said, you know, go to school, get a safe, secure job, and buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. It's nothing like pitching a gold mining deal in China. And you're trying to prove it to an investor there's actually gold there, which there was. But then you learn such terms as country risk. I never knew. I mean, after working on the China deal since 1996 to 2004, how risky China is.
Yeah.
But you can't tell somebody that unless they've actually felt the pain of them taking your deal from you. And you haven't lived, you don't know what it's like, what insider trading means. You see, most people who buy stocks are outsiders. They're not insiders. See, these guys here are insiders. There are a lot of, I wouldn't say they're dishonest, but they have stories to tell.
Right, right.
And if you're not sharp, you don't know a good story from a BS story.
You can't learn that in school. You
don't
have to
learn
be
that,
out doing it.
Yeah, but when I'm standing there, I'm pitching my deal. I'm just as big a crook as everybody else as far as the investors are concerned.
Yeah.
And I still remember this one oil deal I had. I found out the definition of insider trading. And you know what the definition is? It has nothing to do with me as the owner of the company. The insider was a guy actually standing on the well.
Right.
So we were going down, and we're getting positive feed, positive pay coming up, and we know we're going to strike the big one.
Right.
So we're watching our stock climb as the bit is going down.
Right.
The stock's going up on Toronto, you know, and we're all excited. We're now multi-billionaires, and suddenly you see the stock go down like this, and the owners are sitting in our room, you know, in Texas. And I go, how did that happen? Why did it crash? And
It's interesting. I can even see you recreating the look on your face of what they probably looked like.
I said, why did it crash? And the old guy was my partner. He was 92 at the time when he was teaching me as a young kid. He says, there's somebody closer to the inside than me, us. So here we are, we're in our offices, but the insider was on the rig.
Right.
And he got on his cell phone and said, there's no pay here. And he called his friends and dumped the stock. And that's how fast it is. So, all your viewers out there, you have a stock, bond, mutual fund, and ETF, remember, you're an outsider.
Yep.
The deal was done before it went public, and the insiders have already made the money.
Right.
If it makes it to the stock security area. Most of them don't make it.
Yeah.
But it's the best education because you can't describe that feeling of being an insider and seeing your share price go from $6 to zero that fast. There goes your $12 million profit that fast.
Yep.
So if you're not an insider, you're outside.
Yeah, although even going through an experience like that, obviously, you know, we hope things go a certain way, yet one of the things I love about what you write and speak about is just getting the experience, and maybe that's part of the learning curve, which you can't do just sitting there watching other people do it, but getting out and getting involved.
Yeah, and I don't recommend what I do. You know, like the reason I love real estate, what Trump, Trump, some people love him, some people hate him. But he and I like being entrepreneurs because we're insiders. We actually put the deal together. I don't have to buy somebody else's shonky little mutual fund or
Right.
ETF. You know, I don't touch those things. And not because I'm better than it. It's no fun. You know, it's like going to the supermarket, going to Safeway, and buying a piece of steak.
Right.
You know, the fun was getting that cow to the slaughterhouse.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
So it's just these games you play, and the average person doesn't have number one, the education or the stomach to play the game. You know, when you start slaughtering that cow,
Right.
your stomach comes apart too. If you know what I mean? So it's a different game.
It puts it all into perspective, and along those lines, you mentioned China and gold. It seems like much different view of gold, precious metals in China than you find here in the U.S.
Well, I learned the hard way. It's cheaper to buy gold retail than to start a gold mine.
Right, right.
It's a lot cheaper. It cost me $27 million, the Chinese gold deal.
Yeah,
And China's in serious financial trouble, but the reason they confiscated or they helped themselves to our gold mine is they need gold.
yeah.
You know, and that's what I know. The reason I'm buying a lot of gold today, and today as I'm speaking to you, gold's about $12.50 on US
Right.
dollar an ounce. It's cheap. It's really, really cheap. Because what I know about gold, I'm not trying to pitch it, but there's only so much free gold. And free gold is actual gold that you and I can buy. Okay, in a few years, that free gold's gone because the rich guys are hoarding it. They're just,
Right.
like China's just dumping it underground, and Switzerland, the rich guys are just hoarding it.
Yeah.
So the free gold's going to go, and that's going to blow apart the gold ETF market, which is GLD or SLV and silver. It's going to blow them apart because they don't have any gold. There's no gold in GLD, and there's no silver in
That's
SLV.
what I hear, and
Yeah.
certainly having the actual physical metal is a good step for people to be aware of.
That's my opinion. I don't recommend it, but I just tell faithfully what I do.
Right.
And so the beauty of like this conference is it brings back bad memories and good memories. As a young man, you know,
Yep.
like pitching these deals and trying to take a company public and not lying, but kind of telling people exaggerated stories, you know, like, hey, we found this gold, and, you know, but we did find it. Our oil company didn't work,
Right.
but our silver company worked, and our gold company worked. But it's the excitement of it. You know, it's the difference between playing for the
Yes.
New England Patriots or watching them on television.
Yeah,
The
and
average
it's-
person's watching the Patriots on television.
Right.
I'd
right.
rather be on the field playing for the Patriots, you know.
Yeah, and it's nice again meeting you in person. I see the excitement
Yeah.
come through your eyes, and you know, however things go, there's perhaps that's just the real joy of life is being able to experience the things that go well, the things that maybe become learning experiences, and while we're talking about gold and silver, obviously over the past decade we've had more dollars flying out there than one could have imagined. Not sure if you've heard there's a report going around about how the Department of Defense has lost $21 trillion and just removed the documents from their website. So a lot of
I haven't heard that, but that's the problem with this industry is the rumors, you know.
Yeah, well, this actually
news
was
it's
a
called. Fake news.
PhD economist, Mark Skidmore from Michigan State, who's been talking about it. He went, audited the actual documents and then found the missing money, which, regardless of the view of how I think is accurate, yet still we don't know how many dollars are out there. And curious where you see the future of gold and silver at this point. And I know you mentioned you think they're cheap, which I agree with, and curious how you see that playing out.
Well, what I'm saying, I'd rather go to my coin dealer, which a lot are here. I'd rather buy for them. It's a lot cheaper than starting your own gold mine, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Or silver mine.
Right.
But as far as this news about trillions being lost, to me it's just rumor. And the reason, what I recommend to people is you got to always check your sources.
Right.
And President Trump, he's the guy who popularized fake news. And as far as I'm concerned, most news is fake anyway. You look at the word history, it's his story.
Yes.
And that's like my wife says, did you know Columbus never made it to America? I said, God, I never thought about it that way.
Right.
He realized he never made it to America. He made it to some island, but it wasn't America. And then everybody says now the Vikings made it to America first.
Right.
While in school, if you put down who came to America first, you put the Vikings, you got an F. It's Columbus. Well, Columbus didn't make it either. You know?
Right. Right.
So that's the trouble with his story.
Yep.
It's a story. It's fake.
Right. And speaking of a great story, perhaps this will be the last question. I studied under Blair Singer, who I'm
great.
sure
He's
you
the best.
remember. And in that great audio kit, you told a great story about persistence and how you met your wife, and perhaps might be willing to share that for the folks out there wondering whether they should keep going sometimes or how that played out.
Well, the story, Blair is, if you look, everybody has to learn how to sell.
Yes.
If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be some schmo in the back room. You don't need to sell, but entrepreneurs have got to sell. So when I was leaving the Marine Corps, I flew for the Marine Corps, and my poor dad wanted me to get my MBA, and my rich dad wanted me to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
And he says, the number one skill is selling. And I said, why? He says, because sales equals income. So when a person says, I don't have any income, it's because you're not selling.
Right.
It's real simple. It's called top line in the financial statement. You don't have to go to college to learn that one. But most people can't sell, or people who can sell can always sell better. So in 1974, when I left the Marine Corps, I got a job I applied to IBM and Xerox, not because I like IBM and Xerox, but they had the best sales training.
Right.
So the story, I went from the worst salesman to the best, number one. 4 years it took, though. But the story I say to Blair is that it helps in love life, too, because my sex life was a little lacking because I couldn't sell. You know what I mean?
I've been there and seen the marketing helps.
I'd go to the bar, I'd be the old guy at the bar. And every chick would say, beat it, and be like, oh, she said no, and I'd run away. But when I saw my wife, it's just like, it was lust at first sight. I asked her out for 6 months. I asked, in sales, you got to ask 6 different times, 3 different ways. I sent flowers, I called her, I sent cards, balloons, whatever it took. Here I am, she
Right.
beat it. And so finally I did my market research, what salesmen should do. And I found out my wife Kim's best friend was an ex-girlfriend who hated me.
Right.
So there was Karen and Kim. Kim didn't know who I was, and Karen hated me.
Right.
Another sales job. Karen, yes, you bum. I don't want to talk to you. I said, look, no hard feelings. What do you mean no hard feelings? You're a scumbag. I said, look. So, the salesmanship was actually harder on Karen than Kim.
Right.
So I had to get over Karen saying, you're a scumbag, you're a liar, you're a womanizer, you're a drunk, you're a complete everything my mother said not to go out with. I said, you have no hard feelings. She goes, a lot of hard feelings. So finally I got Karen to give me what every salesman wants, is a referral. So finally Karen, it took about 3 weeks to sell Karen. And then Karen finally calls Kim and says, why don't you give him one shot? And Kim says, okay, if you say so, So I went out that one time, 33 years ago. And we've been together every day since, well, almost every day. So that's the story of sales and persistence.
It's a beautiful story. I've loved listening to that, and it's a pleasure to finally catch up with you in person. I think you're really doing some inspirational work and really pointing out that difference of getting out there and experiencing rather than doing the status quo. And perhaps just in wrapping up, you can again let folks know where they can find you and keep track of the great things you're doing.
Well, after 21 years, Rich Dad Poor Dad is back on the top 10 list all over the world. So there's something going on. I'm even number 6 in France. Can you imagine that? The Communist Republic of France. I'm number 6. I'm number 1 in Japan after 21 years. Amazon, I'm number 7, I think. So there's something going on. This economy is coming apart, in my opinion, or is changing. And so the idea of go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, invest in the stock market.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Well, it's obsolete advice. But our schools are still teaching it. I think the 2 biggest mistakes schools make is they tell you don't make mistakes. I mean, I'm here because I'm a walking mistake.
Right.
I learned because I fell down and I stood up, fell down and I stood up. And the second thing that school mistakes is they don't cheat. You know, the definition of cheating in school is giving aid to somebody in need. Well, the difference of the way I invest is the teachers would say I'm cheating because I have the best accountants, bankers, attorneys, bookkeepers. So think of it this way. When I come on the field as an entrepreneur, I come as a team. So that's like the average guy is standing on the field of business as an individual. So that's like going against the Green Bay Packers or the Dallas Cowboys as one person. And then people are wondering, why am I being run over? You know, they have a team, they're cheating. You know, I'm an A student, I went to Harvard Business, I'm getting crushed here. Well, the reason people get crushed is you don't have a team, because in school, having a team is called cheating.
Right.
That's my last word.
Yeah, and just you mentioned business school, and I say this somewhat jokingly, although completely truthfully. I went to Wharton for an MBA.
Congratulations.
And if I could go back in time, I would have bought Rich Dad, Poor Dad instead, and be maybe even a little further along. So, Robert, it's a real pleasure to meet you.
Nonetheless, Wharton's a great school. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, Robert Kiyosaki is a great teacher as well. It's a pleasure to have you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and I know folks will be excited to see you speak.
Thanks for switching sides.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
On the live side.
Yeah.
Thank you.